please remember to leave a like, a comment, share the video about, and if you haven't already, subscribe. Thank you. Well, isn't this just fantastic? Hello everyone, welcome back to Omegon 2. Today we're going to be looking at two videos. One is just because it tickled me to no end, because nothing reeks of tough more than what you're about to see. The second concerns a mother and their child. So the first video is the following.
Hi there. You can either respect my trans homies, or I can identify as a problem. And if I catch your bitch ass being disrespectful, your pronouns are going to be was, were.
Doesn't somebody already identify as was and were? Which would surely mean you are now disrespecting their pronouns.
Thank you for coming, and have a nice day.
Okay, I have to say, if you're going to be so bothered by words, should I perhaps remind you of things we were taught as children? This might have skipped a few generations, so allow me to restate it. Sticks and stones may break your bones, because they bloody well can. Okay, I've added that bit in. But words will never hurt me, and nor should they. The nature of war appears to have changed from that of what happened with the pew-pews and the stabby-stabs and the clubs, the swords and all the old-fashioned timey-wimey stuff. A flintlock, I believe, is also a customary thing in war. And instead, it is now about one's individuality. I want to insert some smarmy, spoken in upper English class-styled voice remarks, snark, you know, the usual. But I'm saving it for the next video. So let's dive into that.
Let me preface this by saying that I am not an expert, but I am the mother of a trans child.
Okay, so the individual next to you, I would assume, is your child. This is a vitally important assumption, because then I have to ask, how old is your child to identify as trans, and are you seeking medical help for your trans child to ensure they are properly assessed, evaluated, and given the care they deserve? Or have they simply said they're trans and you're enabling it? Or do you simply want them to be trans so much so that you forced it upon them and they believe it to be 100% legitness? The last one might seem far-fetched, but I have to insert Susie Green here. If you don't know who she is, Google her. She manipulated and violated her own child to make them into a girl and now a woman because she wanted to get back at her ex-husband for being homophobic. Not a joke. The child believes, now an adult, that the mother did nothing wrong. The mother laughed at them for having a tiny tallywhacker when they went and had the surgery around the NHS by going to a different country entirely. So in retrospect, is that a far-fetched position? Who knows? Let's find out.
And there has been a lot of misconceptions about medication for the trans community, specifically minors.
Well, this should be remarkably simple then. Allow me to tell you what I believe a child should have access to as a child when it comes to medication pertaining to being transgender. If one has gender dysphoria, it is diagnosed, of course. Medical treatment for which, well, typically involves a form of puberty blocker, something which I do not support. Science is now on my side, by the way. It really is. I will never support giving children life-altering medications, ones that risk their future in case they change their mind. Something that is permanent like a tattoo, but more damaging in the long term. Insert obligatory, but what about a swastika tattoo? You can fuck right off out of my comments. Legitimately, you can actually do that.
So growing up in grade school, I had a friend named Fern. And Fern started developing super early, like in 4th grade. And you could tell that she wasn't sitting well in her skin.
4th grade is around the age of 9 to 10 years old. While I can fully understand and appreciate at that age there would be signs, medical intervention in the form of any kind of medication should be very much limited, restricted, non-existent, instead favouring psychiatric treatment to ensure that they are given the best possible chance to either grow out of this condition, because there's always the chance they do, or help them for when they do eventually transition at a much later age after their teen years.
And it was horrible for her. But here's the thing. By 7th grade, we all caught up. And Fern went on and enjoy the rest of her childhood, high school, so on and so forth.
For those who don't know, 7th grade is 12 to 13 years old. You've basically just confirmed that some people do in fact, I would argue a vast majority in fact, end up growing out of what could be in fact a medical problem further down the road. Insert your child now.
So now the difference between Fern and the trans kid
is that we don't have the same luxury of everyone else catching up, of everyone else feeling the same as us once we reach a certain point.
But it is not about luxury, is it? The problem you have is, if the symptoms are early enough, that doesn't mean that you should be transitioning, does it? It means one has to go through a battery of tests, many of which are still being developed to ensure that this is correct, because statistics are no longer on your side about forcing a transition or enabling a transition, to make sure that you, the individual, are as prepared as you can be when you enter adulthood. Things that cannot be avoided have to be gone through as well, and that includes something like puberty. It may be an inconvenience while your identity is in crisis, but it is an immutable and harsh reality that everyone has to experience regardless of the dysphoria, or perhaps the harm to one's social credit score.
So the anxiety level that is created by not allowing children to take these medications and take a breath and grow into themselves.
You can't allow children to take the medications because it stunts their ability to grow. It doesn't give them a chance to understand because children do not have the ability to understand. They never do have the ability to understand the full consequence of the action being the choice to stunt their own future because they might be right. You can argue my body, my choice, but it is the parent's job to protect that child for as long as possible, and you cannot in good conscience believe that by putting them on medication, like for example puberty blockers, that you are protecting them. It tells me that in your head there is a small part of you that lacks common sense. Children need to grow out. They need to fully go through puberty first. They really do. I'm not trying to be transphobic in the slightest here, by the way. I just believe this needs to be a decision made by an adult and not by a parent enabling the child to act this out until there's no going back. Because once that line is crossed, there really is no going back. You can try and correct it with future surgeries if you like, but the damage is done. And eventually, like many things, somebody gets blamed. You can blame the system for not helping the child, but eventually when the child grows up, they will blame the parent for failing them.
Is so strong that we actually may be harming certain children by not giving them access.
I know you would more than likely hide behind an appeal to authority fallacy because of your child, but you are still asserting something with no evidence to back it. No empirical data in your video to confirm what you are saying. You're going with may and could. Anxiety is a condition, a symptom, that can be managed. I say this because, well, it's an appeal to authority, I guess. Because I have anxiety. For different reasons, of course. So it's not the same and is a false equivalence. Oh my life, all these buzzwords. Does it make me wrong though? No, it really doesn't. This is a patronizing attempt at trying to make it seem like children should have access to these medications because birthright and because, well, the child can't be wrong and nor can I. I'm the parent and when the customer always knows what they want. Is this the part where I insert James Younger, the kid from Texas, whose mum moved them to California to get away from the father because the mother has been forcibly transitioning their child, and the state, and California now by extension, are supporting the mother, even though the child has on multiple occasions stated, "I'm a boy," all because the mother saw them play with a doll when they were 2. Just in case you weren't aware, parents are also morons.
The vast majority of minors who would receive some form of gender-affirming care would receive it in the form of puberty blockers. Puberty blockers have been used for decades to delay puberty. That means a 13-year-old person who was born as a boy and is just on the cusp of male puberty can delay it if that person feels like she may be a girl.
In March 2024, the United Kingdom got ahead of the curve on this one and decided to take action against private clinics and the NHS that prescribe puberty blockers to anyone under the age of 18 because they now know, because we have enough information to go on, that this is no longer a viable treatment to postpone puberty, to push it back by a year or more. It is not. It has now been proven to cause harm to the child's development, and because, oh shocker,
it's still a fucking child making an adult decision on a child's body.
This isn't overly complicated. A child can't make these kind of decisions. The fact it's taken this long for people to understand it, regardless of how long they've been used, is astonishing. I don't care if they've been used for decades. I care that children are being harmed. That's what I care about. Alternative treatments need to be found to help them through the biological process that must happen regardless of your identity.
I find a common misconception is people think trans kids are being, quote, mutilated or groomed or coerced into something they might regret later.
According to a number of lawsuits against the NHS and Tavistock Gender Clinic in the United Kingdom, that has been the case, along with the fact that they have not had the proper resources given to them to make sure they made the right decision, because a large number of them have turned tail and decided to detransition. This might not be as relevant to your country because your country is too vast and studies need to be conducted on a state level. Those studies won't be conducted though because people like to play politics with children's bodies and adult lives, which means that very little is ever accomplished, instead enabling, because it turns out anything that involves drugs, because predatory system in place,
is highly profitable.
rub your earlobes if you get it. And for those that don't, essentially this can be whittled down to the following: no lives matter.
But in reality, trans kids do not get reassignment surgery before they're adults.
Are we sure about that? Because I earlier mentioned Susie Green on purpose, who took their child at the age of 16 to go to another country to have the surgery forced upon them, with them believing that it was the right thing to do. You are like your parent, asserting things. This is an embarrassing state of affairs and done solely from a position of, well, I lived this experience, therefore I'm an authority on it because of it. Look up Susie Green and you will understand what I'm talking about. There's a video of her laughing at the fact that her then son had a very small tallywhacker because of the medication they were on that was stunting their growth. So when they had the surgery, there wasn't much to remove, which is a quote from Susie Green, who then went on to laugh about it.
They get blockers. That's what the far majority of trans kids get. And by all of these laws blocking every single form of care, shutting down gender-affirming care clinics that truly just help kids take a breath, by closing them, you're closing their airway.
Now this is where it's quite irritating for me, because when I Google gender care clinics shutting down in America, the first things I get are the UK ones being closed down, because they're trying to bring it all in-house within the NHS, and because Tavistock, which was the first gender identity care clinic in the UK, well, got a lot of lawsuits. The nearest I got was one in Texas, which led me to believe that a lot of this centered around the amount of money they were making and the lack thereof, which again speaks volumes about a naturally predatory system. Legislators in some states, though, do change this, don't they? It's just a shame that I can't pull up the information via Google Foo, because my Google Foo is UK based. So again, you are asserting something, and I can neither confirm nor debunk what you've said. How exciting. And equally not annoying.
So let's let parents of trans kids handle their kids with their doctors in private. I know my kid best. Can we just get together for that one?
Firstly, you do not know your kid best, especially when it comes to medicine. There's no version of this where you ever could, without anyone with a brain cell considering you a GROOMER, ABUSER, or a terrible mother. This must be done properly, and this is an area of science where it is still in the semi-grey area. It is going to continue to take time to fully understand. The puberty blocker argument from earlier has been done for, as your child asserted, over 20 years. Decades, so at least 20. But studies in the UK are already starting to show this is not a good thing. Gender clinics closing isn't great, of course, for gender care for adults. Children should go straight to their doctor, and the doctor needs to be properly trained in that area. The parent should not be trying to dictate or trying to control what the doctor does with the patient. And while I fully support a parent being involved in every aspect of their child's life until that child is an adult, you cannot be making a decision on that child's body until that child is an adult. But this is often the problem with America. If this is America and not Canada, who can be certain these days? Maybe I did get it wrong. Maybe it was Canada the whole time, which would have some merit. I mean, they did close down a number of gender care clinics in 2022 because of provincial funding formula changes. If I wasn't being serious enough before, I'll state it again just so we are on the same page. Or at least my opinion is known, as if it wasn't already. Children should not be receiving any form of medication that stunts their ability to grow, because the child will be making a child decision on a child body, yet the decision is permanent, which makes it adult. The parent should also not be making any decision to change that child's body. Puberty blockers are a curse for a child.